Hello, everybody. I'm Grace Bubeck, and I'm with Jeannie McGillivray today. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, Grace. Hi.
And hi to everybody. Welcome. And we'll be talking about the heart of the unknown. And just to introduce Jeannie briefly, Jeannie is, well, shall I say, a relatively new kid on the block of non-dual spiritual teachers. I met her in person during the last Love Live event, where she kind of came in, and I really liked her contribution and her energy. So it was just very natural to invite her to a conversation just with the two of us. So Jeannie offers satsang locally in the area where she lives in the UK, and also in London. And she'll also have a presentation at this year's SAND conference in California, just as last year. And Jeannie is also the co-founder of Meeting Truth, which is an online portal for non-dual spiritual events and teachers. And so, in case you don't know that, you'll find the link in Jeannie's bio on the Living from Love website. Which you get to either under the teachers or by clicking on her photo on the homepage. So I'm very happy to speak to you, Jeannie, about a topic that actually I really I feel very drawn to myself, which is being in the unknown, facing the reality that we live with moment to moment, which is that, the future is unknown.
Yeah.
And the past is made up.
Yeah.
So Jeannie, I'll hand over to you to start with, and you can start us off as you like.
Okay. So this topic that we've kind of chosen for this conversation is, for me, it's one of the most important aspects of our spiritual unfoldment, if you like, or of spiritual seeking, in that there's a great endeavor when we go to see spiritual teachers, or we meditate, or we partake in any kind of inquiry that can have within it an acquisitivity, that looking for something, wanting to get something, or having an agenda in it. And for me, when I really appreciated the complete helplessness that I, as a seeming individual, had in my life, the lack of, because I think up until that point, I kind of thought that I had all the balls in the air in life, and I was kind of juggling husband, family, work, and all that kind of thing. I thought I was doing pretty okay at it. But when the kind of harsh reality, the stark realization that actually I didn't do anything, I didn't have control over anything, that anything could happen. It was actually a shocking, quite existentially, quite a shocking revelation, and it brings with it quite a bit of fear, or can, you know, naturally, because there's part of the energetic makeup that we've up until that point kind of rested on as our identity, as our role in life, is whipped away. So we are left in this free fall situation where we realize that, and probably for the first time, that we've never controlled the moments of grace in our life. We've never controlled the synchronicities. We've never controlled the hardships. We've never controlled the accidents, the meeting of lovers, all of those kind of heightened parts of our lives, or even the next step or the next breath, is not something we take or that we do, but that actually we are very much living in this beautiful a kind of eternal moment that has no beginning and no end. That actually the security that we think we're finding in our habitual control over our lives is actually found when we totally relinquish that kind of agenda, when we start to live an innocent life. So from a spiritual perspective, for me, that is really when the rubber meets the road of spiritual practice. It's where it's no longer conceptual. It's not something that's found in a book. It's not something we can learn or from somebody else or read about really from somebody else. But it's where spirituality really starts to kind of be something that lives within our souls, if you like. So yes, I think it's a beautifully juicy subject on all levels, really, and it's something that we kind of have. I feel that we kind of commit to, also in a way. Yeah. So that's how I would introduce the subject, really.
That's great, thanks. And you know, I just want to say, I haven't actually discussed this with Jeannie, but I'm just going to throw this in. It would be wonderful if this could be not just a conversation between Jeannie and me, but if people felt free to come into the hangout right away with their questions and, you know, reflections, whatever, you know, whatever calls you to share, feel free to do that. I hope that's okay with Jeannie. Absolutely. It just comes in the moment to offer that to people. So there's two ways you can come in. One is to ask a question on the YouTube thread, and the other one is to actually join us on the Hangout, and you'll find the link on the Hangout, for the Hangout, on the Living from Love website on the homepage, under the event listing with Jeannie. You find both the YouTube link and also the link to the Hangout. So do feel free to join us also.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So maybe, Jeannie, maybe a good way to start is by you leading some kind of some short meditation that really brings us into this moment.
Okay, so if we just close our eyes for a little, take a few breaths, and just turn our attention inwards. And just welcome all the sensations exactly as they are. Noticing the point of contact with the seat. The sensation of the back. The energy of the body. The sense of aliveness. And the sounds. Just allow your awareness to be kind of diffuse, not necessarily resting on any particular experience. But just allowing all experience to be conscious, to be aware of it. Just to the level of your capacity, not doubting yourselves that you should be feeling more or noticing something else. Just a very gentle, relaxed, compassionate, and open awareness, just exactly as it is, just to everything as it is. Just allowing it to become intimate. And just very gently and naturally notice the nature of awareness itself. Does it become articulated on a specific experience of a backache or a sound or a thought? And does it then expand again to include the wider nature of experience? And just noticing if it has any location or limits or conditions or attributes. Just a very gentle, open and innocent investigation with the intimacy of your own experience. Do you come and go? Do you move? Are your sensations located? Or does the thought locate them? Just allow the privacy of your own experience. It's not something you can get wrong. Don't preempt answers with learnt knowledge. Allow yourself to be honest and authentic in the privacy of your own experience. And just notice if your inquiry is being driven by the mind. Is it looking for objects? And if so, can you open out our investigation to include other senses? So can you include the sensations of the body, of the cells? Can you include a sense of aliveness that permeates it all? Can we allow it to be a more sensual, experiential experience? And just allow yourselves to be present to every breath, to the rise and fall of the chest and the belly, the feeling of the cool air entering the nostrils. And the warmth as the breath exits the body. And just ask yourself, is there even a location to that? Without employing a thought, what's the raw experience of it? Just allow yourself not to know, not to already know. Just experience it as if for the first time. Notice the vitality that the in-breath brings to the cells, to the body. And how it's given freely. And as we prepare to open our eyes again, just notice if there's a tendency for the mind to leap forward, to leap into the moment where we open our eyes, to drop the innocence of the inquiry. And see if it's possible to maintain the intimacy even with eyes open, so that when we open our eyes, the visual world is included in our intimate experience of ourselves. And notice how, when we open our eyes, we don't move. The world of form is included in our beingness, is included in our experience.
Thank you, Jeannie. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I wanted to suggest something experiential because it's so easy for the mind to go to stay busy with, well, then what do I do with the unknown?
Exactly. Yeah.
How do I do this to be in the moment?
Yeah.
And so it's just so much more direct to just go there directly. And I loved you're using the word innocent and innocence, because it really is. There is an innocence when the mind doesn't take hold of the experience. Always. My teacher used to say fresh. It's always fresh. But I actually really like innocent. That speaks so directly to something that's not quite captured by fresh. So thank you for that. That was
Pleasure.
yeah, I really love that.
And it's a beautiful paradox, because if the mind thinks about not knowing or thinks about innocence, it doesn't know what to do with it. But the beautiful thing is that when we really sink into just all we're being asked to do is to look at the reality of the situation, to live an honest life, really. And once we do that, it's actually an enormous relief for the mind, because it's a beautiful tool, and it's such a creative and wonderful asset to us all. But when we're trying to get it to control life, it's totally uncomfortable with it. it's, you know, there's that lovely saying, isn't there, that it's, I'm out of my depth. And the mind is totally out of its depth trying to control reality or trying to do reality. It's just not its job. So when it kind of finally does surrender to the unknown and to this present moment, it actually is what it's always longed for, because it's in its rightful place. It's you know, it's in its rightful relationship with life.
And it's so much more relaxing. You know? I mean, it's like then the mind can come in when it needs to, but it doesn't keep having to second guess. You know, everything that's happening or that's happened or that will happen. As if that was a good idea to start with.
I know. And you can kind of have compassion for it then, really. It's this, you know, through our adolescence and our adult years, we really are perpetually trained to be a success, to look good, to be organized, not to be a mess, you know. So we kind of have a habit in our Western cultures to train our loved ones into misery in a way, really, which in itself is innocent. It's but when we kind of wake up to that, when we wake up to the whole underlying dis-ease of it, we begin the entrance into something much more authentic, and a true intimacy with ourselves and life itself. It can begin. We can begin, and we become explorers or adventurers, really, into life. How do I actually sleep? How does eating? What is eating? What really happens instead of shoveling food in, you know, all the time and not really noticing how we walk, how we breathe, the coincidences in life, whatever it might, you know, the magic, the tiny little elements of magic, a flower opening or, you know, an animal. Then this beautiful surrender really into life as it is becomes sort of devotional. It becomes so luxurious and delicious that life takes on a new quality.
And you know, my sense is the compassion is needed not just for the mind, but actually, you know, for the human animal that's ultimately driven by fear. You know, and you know, it's just so good to see or to feel, you know, like when we find ourselves in the mind, you know, busy trying to control, trying to figure things out, and you know, these things fall away bit by bit. They don't fall away all at the same time. So we keep getting the opportunity to look and to see what's happening. And maybe I'll just give an example from my own life, which is very kind of current, which is that I've been having a dental problem for quite a few months, and it's not resolving. And it's funny because it just brings up a lot of fear for me. And so this has been like my this has been like my practicing ground, because like everybody has their places where the fear and the control happens most immediately and most quickly. And for some, it's like relationships with others. For some, it's their children, if you're mother or father. For some, it's, it's the body and illness or survival. Whatever it is, it just, I just keep seeing how that there keep being new ways that the fear comes up and drives yet another kind of attempt to control the situation, or to try and finally get this sorted, and I mean, just today I was sitting with this and I was just looking at it and I thought, it's beyond my control.
Yeah.
It'll do what it'll do, and I can actually also, when the fear doesn't run the show and the attempt to control it, the choices that are being made are so much better choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they come from just a knowing in the moment, or just an impulse in the moment that turns out to be, just a good thing to do, or a helpful thing to do, or a helpful person to contact, or and it's just, I mean, for me, it's just been very interesting, because I can see how, there's so much that's been wound up for me around physical health and illness, and so much conditioning, so much control, so much, and it all keeps, it's just like perfect. It's a perfect kind of opportunity to keep seeing, to keep being in that clarity of, here it is again, and the animal, human animal, of course, the body wants to survive, wants to be well, wants to be without pain. So that's what it's programmed to do. It's not just the mind, it goes much deeper. It goes right into the very, the very physicality of being in a body, and what the body is programmed to do.
Yes, you bring up, for me, lots of different aspects around this, with your sort of recollection, Grace, in that one thing I've found is that life is so deeply intelligent. I mean, to the point where I cannot fathom how it could possibly be so intelligent. So if all of your issues are around the body, that is what will happen in your life for your biggest teaching. And that is amazing grace. It's a fierce grace for sure, but it's also absolutely kind of mind-blowing. Nobody can rationalize that. Nobody can really understand it. It's, ultimately life is mysterious, but ultimately it is intelligent. And that's what kind of one beautiful thing for me, which is always a saving grace in whatever tricky experience we might be going through. And the other thing that you touch on is that life isn't necessarily suddenly going to become a chocolate box of wonderful experiences all the time. For sure, the wonderful experiences are enjoyed to their fullest. They fully bloom in experience, and there isn't perhaps so much conditioning that holds you back from enjoying them. But it does also mean that when there are these very sort of visceral, very challenging experience, that there is the absence of a whole load of suffering. So yes, the pain may still be there. There may be slight anxiety. The body wants to be well. It wants to survive. It naturally wants to expand. But there isn't the additional level of kind of existential, quite the same degree that there may be if there isn't an element of awareness around the whole experience, and an element of awakeness around the whole experience. So really, I guess it having this level of consciousness in our lives does take the edge off whatever's going on in experience. It enables it to be raw experiencing, if you like, which is, you know, an incredible grace. And when we notice if the mind's going, what if this, what if that, should I do this, should I do that, or whatever, that moment of noticing the mind in action is, again, a kind of moment of grace. Sometimes it can be a moment where we go, oh no, I was doing it again, and we kind of slightly punish ourselves psychologically, but actually that's the moment where we are awake in that moment. And that's the moment of where we can kind of give praise for that awakeness, when what may have been a kind of an understandable habit, really, if the body is concerned over its own well-being. Yeah, but that's a kind of a real moment of celebration rather than chastising, isn't it? We can kind of get into a habit of sort of chastising ourselves in that moment, but really that's the moment of awakening. Yeah.
Well, it's the moment of coming back out of conditioning to just an awareness.
Yeah. I haven't felt fear for a long time, like a really long time. And it's so interesting that this comes up in conversation, because last night my husband woke at about 4 a.m. to use the toilet, and I woke up out of a bad dream. And it was such a fantastically eerie dream. I remember it really vividly because he happened to wake me in that moment. There was a girl who was self-harming in the dream, and I was her I had been employed to be her carer. And she looked at me and she said, "I hope you like the painting I've done on myself." And as my husband, in the dream, a kind of bellow of sort of fear and a sense of responsibility happened, because this girl had obviously hurt herself. And as I woke up, I woke up with the experience of the sort of fear, of the eeriness of it, the peculiarness of it. And it was so fascinating to see this feeling of fear really bloom, a sort of visceral blooming of this amazing energy, and also to see the mind kept wanting to replay the scenario, kept wanting to think about the dream and bring on the energetic reaction to, so kind of really clearly to see that dynamic. And at one point I said, no, I'm not going to do that thought again. I've done it. I felt it. And then I forgot about it. And it was so interesting that even in the forgetting, you know, I just sort of forgot about it. It sort of just seeped into the distance. To see the connection, you know, such a strong connection with the imagination and fear was absolutely incredible. Really amazing. It's such an amazing, just more and more and more I get to witness the powerful role that psychology has over reality. And our experience of life is so governed by psychology. It's absolutely fascinating. Really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
How we can have two people can have the same experience, but both have very different experiences, depending on their kind of, you want to say level of consciousness, but it's not really that. It's really depending on their psychology. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're
really with
really different worlds.
very
You know.
different worlds.
And
That's right. So really, with our topic, it's looking through psychology is a bit like looking through two different filters. So someone might have a rose filter and someone else may have a blue filter. And what we're really talking about here is setting filters aside so that we're not looking at the world through our conditioning, but we're looking at it as if we were newborn, or just really rawly, what really is it? How do is life really experienced? What is it really? What am I really? Where am I? You know, how is this? I don't know. You know, and the answer may be I don't know. And that's maybe the first time we've ever been honest with ourselves, that we don't know, and it's okay not to know. But I'm committed to truth, to living a truthful life, to be truthful about my experience as it really is. And no longer looking through the lens of the mind or the lens of our conditioning, but really committing to looking honestly and innocently, as we said, at our direct experience. And it really brings spirituality to life. It's no longer a kind of esoteric or academic pursuit. It's here, it's us, it's life. It's not a concept. It's alive.
yes. Yeah.
And really the beautiful thing is that it's small wonder that centuries, hundreds and years of mystics are writing about our very experience. For hundreds of years, the mystics have been all over the world, have been writing about this very experience that we have now, that we share, you know.
And, you know, I'm tempted to say that there is somehow, you know, that mystics used to be very rare and few, few, and this this
is normal. This is
opening,
natural.
opening to this awareness, to this experience. It's just happening more and more and more and more people. And so there's something in this that's just quite new, you know, in the sense that it's no longer esoteric.
Yeah.
You know, it's like awareness becomes, you know, it kind of is waking up to itself through more and more beings, and there's something quite fascinating about that. You know, something really very new.
It's interesting. I feel that in some ways we've lost our spiritual education. You know, there would have been, I would imagine, mystics who would be part of society. It would be part of a village's education to have spirituality or their own exploration of themselves and the world as part of their education. And to some extent in the West particularly, we've lost that. And actually it's a bit of a taboo. It's kind of a scary thing. Bit weird, bit wacky, or bit woo-woo or whatever. So on the one hand, we've lost a lot of our, I guess it's, you know, also partly due to living in much smaller family units. We've lost some of the wisdom, it seems. But in another respect, we have the internet, which actually gives us access to an enormous knowledge and wisdom and teaching. And for people that are naturally curious about themselves and about spirituality, can find other beings who are curious too and who are talking about these subjects. So it's kind of wonderful, and it does give you the feeling that as a collective consciousness, this is life is waking up to itself. Life is waking up to its own divinity, to its own mystery, to its own aliveness, to how interconnected and integrated we all are, how inseparable any aspect of life is from the totality of itself. You know, I cannot experience myself, this is a fact, I cannot experience myself as separate from anything else. If I think I'm this body, it's absolutely impossible for me to experience myself as separate from anything else in my experience. I can't experience myself separate from the sofa if we're going to just talk about matter. This, if I think I'm limited to this form, it's impossible for me to experience this form as separate. I am entirely inseparable. This body is inseparable. If this is what I think I am, even this body is entirely non-dual. It's entirely inseparable from the totality of my experience. I don't experience my hand any more than I experience the table or your face on my computer. That's the fact. It's I am totally dependent and I am totally integrated in the totality of this experience. I can't find even a place where consciousness stops and an object starts, or there is just one whole experience. It includes the body, it includes the mind, it includes emotions, it includes the visual expanse of the visual world, the auditory world. And it includes the internet and technology and connecting with you in Canada in this extraordinary thing, extraordinarily intimate exchange with me sitting in England and you sitting in Canada.
I know. It's quite amazing. That's one thing that draws me to the internet, you know, just the possibility of including everybody. Maybe not people in Australia because it's in the middle of the night for them.
Yes. I'll have to watch YouTube afterwards.
Yes.
But even then, we will be within their experience.
Yes. Yes.
We will be within their experience. So we'll be inexplicably inseparable from their experience in that moment.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
So, Jeannie, that's a good moment to actually include our viewers.
Okay.
I'd like to just go and see what's happening on the YouTube thread, comment thread, and also I'd like to invite people to come on to the Hangout if you'd like to. I put that invitation out at the beginning of the session, but maybe not everybody was there yet. So if you would like to ask a live question, please do feel free to come on. You'll get the link on the Living from Love website, living-from-love.com on the homepage. And it's also, yes, actually, that's the only place where you'll find it. So Jeannie, I'm just going to take a minute to look at the YouTube thread, and we'll see what's happening there.
Okay.
So let me see. So Gardens in Desert says hi. She's joined from Henderson. NV. North Virginia, I think. No, what is that? I'm sorry. My geography of states in the United States is a bit rusty, I have to say. So Henderson NV. Maybe you can tell me. You can tell me what NV is. Jeannie, do you know what NV is?
Well, I don't know if is it Nevada? I'm not sure if it's Nevada.
Nevada, maybe it's Nevada. Okay. There's Soraya Shanti says hi, Grace, Jeannie, and everyone. Kiara, oh, that's Ailsa Kellett. Rebecca Stewart says, thank you for the meditation. That was sweet. Robo Spirit says hi. The media keeps the population in a constant state of fear, so we are easily manipulated. Interesting topics, bless you. All from Robo Spirit. Kiara says, whoops, I just lost the chat.
Can I just answer the comment that the media keeps us in a perpetual state of fear?
Yes, yes, please do.
Yeah, because I feel that actually we keep ourselves in a perpetual state of fear. And the perpetual state of fear happens in our own experience. It happens in our own being. And it's such a beautiful aspect. In fact, I think Byron Katie, I'm not very familiar with her work, but I feel like I'm kind of answering on behalf of Byron Katie here a little bit. One of the huge important aspects of spirituality is that we realize that actually we are solely responsible for our experience. If we are in a perpetual state of fear, we are keeping ourselves within it. And the outside world is actually a direct reflection. Our experience of the world is a direct reflection of our own inner state of consciousness. So if we're perpetually seeing things that are keeping us in a state of fear, once we take responsibility for that and really understand what is it, let's face this demon, this perpetual state of fear demon. Let's look it in the face. Where is it? How's it experienced? Does it reside anywhere? Is it in my body? Is it in my energy? Is it in my being? Where is it actually? This is the beginning of the end for fear, because it isn't anywhere. It doesn't really exist. It's a sensation an energetic sensation of sorts. But it's when we really begin to look honestly at these experiences, and fear is such a beautiful teacher. It really is a ghost in the machine, you know. It's a sort of a kind of energetic ghost that we can't see, we can't locate, can take over us, our sense of our body and our sense of ourselves. But really, when we kind of take the reins on this and start taking a sort of sense of responsibility for it in a way, we can kind of get real with it. And we
so,
can
Jeannie, just to be more concrete, because, you know, presumably the people who are watching, you know, are not quite at the stage or the level of the depth of insight and clarity that you're at, where fear doesn't even arise anymore. So if fear arises for them, I mean, how would you
it depends,
interact with them? How would you invite them into this realization?
Well, this is where satsang is so beautiful, because actually when we're in each other's company, the answer can be specific to the person that's asking the question. So the answer in this sense would be, I'm genuinely fascinated by all of experience. I feel that all of life is our teacher. You know, we have spiritual teachers, we have children, we have husbands, mothers. All of our human interactions are enormous teachers. All of our conditioning is a fantastic teacher. And fear, when we're in the right relationship with it, is a fantastic teacher. So for me, I have a sense of fascination with it. So I kind of, depending on the nature of the person, you know, if you're quite a delicate person, you can be very delicate with fear. You know, holding it as if you've never seen it, like it's an unknown, I don't know, a baby bird or something. So you can really hold it very delicately, hold yourself very delicately, but really explore it in a way, in a gentle way. Like, what is it? How does it really feel? What's really going on? Or you may be a bit like me, which is my sort of instinct is almost to look down a barrel of a gun. I want to look at it. I want to know it. I want to get intimate with it. I want to be real with it. So you may have that more of a personality where you know, something like fear arises and you want to look at it. So however you are, you can't get it wrong. But to really let it be here, you know, not in a fake way, not in I'm welcoming everything way, but in a genuine way. Genuinely, what is it? Yeah, in whatever capacity you have.
So I think Rebecca's just joined us to ask a question. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Grace.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not real sure exactly the question, but I have a lot going on right now. I had a grandbaby born last night, or born on the 18th, and there's been a lot going on with that little guy. He's been in a little bit of trouble, but he's coming through. And but you know, I have stuff with the mother about how we're, even with my son, about how they're, well, she had a C-section, and she is on narcotic pain meds and breastfeeding. And so it's really, I said to her, please find out about it, and I want her to not be in pain, but also to get educated about it. And we had a good couple of days. She's still in the hospital. He's under Billy Lights for his liver, which is going to be fine, but it's a really strong time right now. And last night I was in so much fear. My heart was just racing. I'd come home, and the mommy got mad at me, and she just said, well, I'm just going to do this way, and I don't want her to be in pain. I just, it's just, if you just Google breastfeeding and narcotic pain medicines, babies can actually die from, they get the same reactions that we get from narcotics. And he's a little guy too, so he's smaller, so it's just, I don't even know how to, but I've been in fear about it. And also, the way I relate, maybe not just with them, but maybe how I relate, I do relate in some fear, and in like the world there's so many things to get you in the world, it seems, like vaccines.
I kind of sense the question really, which is, I guess it's kind of two things. One is you don't want to overstep the mark with your daughter-in-law. You also have strong sort of maternal feelings for the newborn baby. And these emotions that are going on in your experience are sort of welling up really, and my feeling is that and it's such a cliche in a way, but my feeling is that your remedy is to really locate yourself, to really be present. So noticing the mind's, it's the kind of neurological pathways of slipping down something that catches the mind. So, and fear, or you've got kind of three massive draws for the mind. So you've got not wanting to overstep the mark with your daughter-in-law, a huge sense of maternal feelings for your grandson, and the fear that wells up with his kind of tricky situation. So your mind has these beautifully furrowed, ploughed neurological pathways that will just run down there in the blink of an eye.
Yeah. Excuse me.
That's okay. That's okay. And it's really just to wake up in your own self to that. I guess they would call it a vasana, or in the Indian culture, which is just a tendency. It's a kind of it's like a really greased neurological pathway where the mind will just run off down this and down this sort of furrow in the field, and all the sort of the brain chemistry and the therefore the emotions kind of get whipped all into it. It's like a big soup of experience in our being, but really just sort of waking up to that whole dynamic. So not punishing yourself for it, not trying to change it, not trying to be something else, but just waking up to it. That's what enlightenment is. We cast the light of awareness or awakeness or consciousness, we cast the light of knowing on the whole dynamic exactly as it is. And in that knowing, we can't play our conditioned games. We can't get away with it anymore because we've woken up to it ourselves. So if the mind has this, and with you it seems like perhaps it's a familiar experience, if the mind often runs away in news items or other fears or whatever, that it will have its own hooks, just to wake up to them. There it goes, I can see myself, I'm doing it now, in that moment, just to wake up to the whole dynamic of it. It prevents it from being unconscious. So it just brings a quality, a palpable quality of consciousness to our life, whatever it is, whatever the experience is.
Jeannie, I'm just going to interrupt one moment, just to say, Rebecca, I'm muting your mic whilst you're not speaking because there's a reverb effect. So, but I will unmute it when you speak. So, it's just because the sound quality is not very good when it's on, but when you speak, it's totally fine.
Should I get on this?
If you can, that would be helpful, yes. Yeah, can you hear us, Rebecca? We can't hear you, though. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Perfect, wonderful. Okay. So, Jeannie, let's get back to you were speaking about the possibility of just noticing. Maybe waking up to this is a big word, but just noticing when the fear runs away with you, Rebecca.
And also, Rebecca, it's so important to notice when we try to control anything or anyone in our experience. So in this case, for the most noble of reasons, really, you don't want your daughter to take she's your daughter-in-law. That's right. You don't want her to take the narcotics for the best and most understandable reason. But really, what I'm encouraging you to do is to bring that level of concern back into yourself. We can't control whether somebody else in our lives is going to behave a certain way or do something. We can advise them not to do it. We can say exactly what we feel about it, but rather than projecting our desires out and wanting them to follow, even if we passionately know that our advice is the right thing to do, just to kind of reel it back in and take sole responsibility for ourselves and for our own reactions to what's going on, and to, in some respects, really honour the rights of, and the inevitability even, of whoever it is in our lives to do what they're going to do. It kind of extinguishes that sense of frustration that I have real familiar. I can taste the flavour of that frustration. I, experienced it with all manner of things in my life, particularly in my 30s, I would say. The life seemed unjust and it seemed unreliable and out of control. And the thing is, it's almost like facing up to it. I'm never, ever, ever going to feel satisfied in the world because, one, I don't control it, but two, the sense of satisfaction is actually in me. The sense of stability that I'm looking for, the sense of everything being okay is actually in me. And it's really just encouraging you to just turn around and stay rooted in your own presence, your own being, and fully experience whatever's going on. Allow yourself to fully experience it without trying to control it if you can, without trying to control, but just being fully present to it. And having, that beautiful word, kind of compassion. It's really, that's what compassion really is. And amazingly, that this subject should come up because my own daughter was born with something called chronic meconium aspiration syndrome, which means that she passed meconium in the womb. And as she was born, and in the womb she gasped, even though she had the umbilical cord. So she filled her lungs with meconium, which is the kind of the first bowel movement. So when she was born, she was covered in meconium. It was a chronic case. She had 9% chance of survival. And she was taken immediately out of the delivery room into the special care baby unit. And she had 6 weeks on a ventilator. She was given dopamine so she couldn't move because she was on a ventilator on 100% pressures with 100% oxygen. So if she'd have taken her own breath, she would have burst her lungs. So she was given a drug called dopamine, which paralyzes her so that she couldn't breathe for herself. And I remember people asking, is it karma? Is it, why has it happened? And the only thing you can say, honestly, the only answer is because it is. That's the only reason. Anything else is a kind of a belief overlaid on the actual experience. You want to know, is she going to be okay? Is your grandson going to be okay? Is it going to be okay? Really, these moments in our life teach us surrender. We don't know. We don't know. We just have to surrender. The most peaceful choice is to surrender to exactly what is going on and the entirety of it exactly as it is. And with Ella, she was expected to have brain damage. She was expected to have terrible ramifications. We had oxygen pipes installed all over our home. They thought she would never come off an oxygen tank. And she's now 17, and she's left home, and she's a singer, and she's happy. He's never had any kind of ailment or consequence of that introduction into the world.
Wow.
Yeah. So we really don't know. All we can do is surrender. All we can do is give freedom. Give freedom to those we love, those in our lives, and honor their decisions, while at the same time giving ourselves the freedom to voice our own concerns and our own opinions.
Yes, thank you. That's I finally last night because I knew it was going to bring up more stuff, but I finally did send my son a Facebook thing about it, a private message just saying what I felt about it. And this morning he sent me a message back saying, we've decided what we're doing, so sort of like leave us alone about this,
Yeah.
And so, so I'm not going to bring it up again, but there is a part of me that, like with, this is sort of my MO in a way, like
with GMOs or with vaccines or, you know, different things that, and I'm never going to defeat all this stuff, that's for sure, you know, so, but this fine line sort of between surrender
Absolutely.
and like do something about
Of
this
course.
stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, don't just sit there.
Well, the beautiful thing is that surrender doesn't actually mean that we just sit there.
Uh-huh.
We still have an impetus to act where there is one. We still, life still lifes as us, even if we are ultimately surrendered and in peace with it.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of finding our peace while at the same time, which actually ironically liberates us to act in the world, because we're not held back by our sense of inadequacy or our righteousness or our anger, or we act totally freely and appropriately and spontaneously in the world, in absolute surrender to what is.
Even if it's that you want to fight.
Even if it's that you want to fight, exactly.
Uh-huh.
If the impetus is there
Uh-huh.
to act or to about GMOs or whatever it is, in my case, it's an impetus to have this conversation with Grace and to have this conversation with you and to say the things that are coming out of my mouth. There's before all of those things, there's an impetus, and that impetus follows through into the world. And that is life, and it never, in absolute surrender to this present experience, it is free to express itself in the world.
Yeah, thank you. It's
really express yourself. And what the undercurrent of it, therefore, then, though, is love. You're not acting from fear, you're acting from love.
yes.
And the quality of the action is different.
Yes, because I mean, sometimes like, and I haven't like hated my daughter-in-law much, but last night I was actually hating her. I was just like, oh, you know, how can you do this? And I was just winding myself up, but
you even when you started to talk about your daughter-in-law, that what you were actually coming from was a sense of understanding with your daughter, because you said, I don't want her to be in pain, I understand why she needs to take the narcotics. So you do have an underlying sympathy and understanding for her situation. So it's really kind of freely expressing yourself whilst at the same time acting from that compassion and understanding.
Okay, thank you. I'm so happy it turned out so well for your daughter.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it just makes me feel more, because, you know, every time they stuck that little guy with a needle and they're trying to get that blood out of his heel, and, you know, it's not coming and he's crying, and I have my finger in his mouth for him to suck on it to have a little comfort. So you went through an enormous thing compared to what I was, and I was just like going crazy, you know, just
well, if I had in my mind, I had a beautiful natural home birth was going to happen for Ella, and of course none of that happened.
Well,
it was entirely different and entirely challenging, and a huge lesson, a huge, beautiful lesson in surrender, because I was at the mercy of the hospital staff, of their equipment, of their knowledge, of the drugs available, and I had this vision of this natural home birth, and it didn't turn out that way. But the beautiful thing was, if she hadn't have been born in hospital, she wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
So if we hadn't have ended up, you know, there was this whole thing, the midwife was at a dinner party and unavailable and didn't think I was actually in labour. So we ended up going into hospital.
Oh, wow.
that disappointment was actually a beautiful grace, because if that whole scenario hadn't played out, then Ella wouldn't have been here today.
Wow.
She wouldn't have been rushed into the special care baby unit. So, you know, there is an intelligence underlying everything, and it's really our job to trust it, to become intimate with it, and to surrender.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty and your openness.
Yeah, that's the big thing, surrender, I think. So.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And I just, you know, what can be also just very helpful is to take yourself back to realizing that you don't know. You don't know whether the narcotics will wreak havoc with your grandson's, you know, brain and being, or whether they're okay. You don't know. You know, there's so much we don't know. We think we know, and it gets projected out. But really, just as in Jeannie's case, and it's so beautiful, you know, that, you know, Rebecca, you come on and you speak to Jeannie, who has had this experience with her own daughter. And who would have known, you know, who would have known? And so just even to realize that when you're in the grip of your projections, you know, your fearful projections or your angry projections, just to realize that actually really you don't know. You don't know what's good, what isn't good. You know, you don't know what's okay, what isn't, what's going to be harmful and what isn't.
Yes.
I mean, that's where the lesson is, you know. That's where the possibility is, to just realize that you don't know. You don't know.
And that's where there's this beautiful saying. I don't know if you guys have this saying, but in England we have a saying which is "give over."
Give over.
And if somebody's resisting or fighting, the saying is, "Oh, give over." And this is so beautiful, because this is what we're actually talking about. We're being asked to give over, and to give over to life, to really give over that agendered interaction with life. Because what we then find ourselves, and this is where we go back to really beautifully the introduction for this dialogue, because we find ourselves then poised right at the edge of the known. We know we're here, we know we're present, we know what's going on, but we don't know what to do about it. We're not trying to preempt anything. We're not trying to sort it out. We're not taking responsibility, you know, for the entire universe. And we are then graced with a kind of courage, which is to be in the unknown, which is to be in the being aspect of being a human being, which is a kind of groundless place. It has an exquisite beauty about it, and it's the Christ the Redeemer, really. It's the kind of redemptive aspect of our lives, where we are present, where we are humble, you know, where we are open, receptive, available, loving, peaceful, and where we then move from a far deeper aspect, rather than always having this kind of noisy thing going on. We fall right into our kind of the ground of being, what I would call the ground of being, which is right at the edge of the known. It's a, you know, real open-hearted space to be there and to move from that place, to move from beingness, to move from love.
And you know, I just maybe would add that there's such a difference, you know, when you share with your son and daughter-in-law your concerns about the narcotics and breastfeeding from a place of love, and just being aware of the effects that can be there, but without needing to convince them, you know. They can hear, they also amazingly, they can hear it much more easily. And they will they will be less in a struggle and disagreement with you. So, you know, it's amazing how when we give up that need to project and be right and know, you know, we're so much more able to be present with others and in loving relationship with them. You know, it really changes things around so profoundly. So that giving up the knowing of what should happen, you know. Not necessarily the knowing of facts, because, you know, they're there. It's like narcotics, you know, have an effect on the baby that's breastfed. I mean, that's just known. That just is as it is. But the need to know what therefore should be done, you know, like what your daughter-in-law should be doing. When you give that up, you know, then there can be just I don't know, an innocence, you know, then you don't know what's going to happen. And at the same time, you're with them in this experience, because it's difficult for them too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the body has an enormous capacity for healing.
Yes.
Really well. I mean, Ella had morphine, dopamine, antibiotics, the vitamin injections. I mean, she had all these terrible and everything. She had everything I didn't want for her.
Yeah.
And she took her ventilator off herself. She then went on to a CPAP machine, it was called, which was like a mask with a big elephant trunk above her head. And she was meant to stay on that for a certain number of weeks, and she took that off and went on to nasal prongs. I mean, the inner drive for life is immensely powerful, even in a newborn being.
Yes. Yes.
So that's a fact. You know, we have the fact that we know that narcotics isn't going to be the most appealing thing to come through the breast milk. Nobody would want that for a baby. But the other fact is that whatever challenges we face, our drive for life, the creation's drive for its own existence, is immensely powerful.
And, you know, it's interesting as you say that the birds start singing again. And we started off with the beautiful innocence of the birds singing during the meditation. And it's kind of, you know, it's there again to remind us of that.
Yeah.
Of that innocence. And yet the same, the power to me is not quite the right word, but anyway, I'll use that because I can't think of a better one right now. The power of life to be and to express and to, to flourish is so immense, so immense.
The whole of existence is kind of pulsating with aliveness, isn't it?
Yes.
The birds singing, the bees, the bat wings, even our own in breath, out breath, the heart beating, the lungs moving, absolutely our entire experience. We can even, our energetic sensations and our cells, everything is absolutely humming with aliveness.
Yeah, it's all happening on its own.
Even fear has such a fire of aliveness. It's so hugely alive. It's absolutely amazing. Even the urgency with which you were telling us your story, really wanted to come out, really wanted to express itself, felt very desperate to express itself. Beautiful.
Oh.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, it's like, your laughter is back to that innocence, Rebecca.
Very much so. And it's such a relief when we just come home into our own being. Such a relief.
Yes.
So beautiful. So I feel that's maybe a good place to, that seems to be like a natural kind of ending here. I'm just checking once more the YouTube thread. And Chiara says, it seems that fear is a lack of trust in the intelligence. Yes, absolutely. And then she also says, humility feels like we are seeing ourselves as less than something. My feeling is as a sort of equality in that we are the intelligence, the totality, not separate from it. Chiara, I don't know. I mean, that's what comes to me to say about humility is there's a false humility, which is to feel ourselves as less than. And there is a true humility, which is in the innocence of not knowing and not having a clue and just being there.
I wonder if another word for this same humility, but maybe that it has a more resonance, a better resonance, was, I didn't catch the lady's name. Tiara, would be perhaps a magnanimity. There's a beautiful Indian story about a swan and the grace really of being magnanimous about life, which is, it has being humble actually has a nobility in it that we can maybe miss in that word, but having this kind of beautiful magnanimity is perhaps a more resonant word. It gives perhaps a better flavour for it.
Actually, I quite like humility because there's a presumption in the mind's thinking it knows. And there is a good humbling, in letting that be cut down to true size, and just realizing that we don't know, and it's totally okay not to know. You know, it's just like that. That is the truth.
Yeah.
That is the truth of our being. So in that sense, I feel humility is actually a very good description of that state of not knowing. But of course, it's magnanimous too, because it doesn't know.
It reminds me of the of the mudra of this beautiful sort of bowing down, which is symbolized in the mudra. It's and it's very deliberate, being having humility or being humbled or even being humiliated is not necessarily a negative. It's actually has its place in surrender. In order to surrender, we do need to really humble ourselves and to get real. Be honest.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeannie, and thank you for coming on, Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you for coming on. That's really lovely.
Oh yeah, thank you. This is just I'm doing a little with Suzanne Marie, and I just haven't done this, but I just, when you started talking about fear, I needed to jump in.
Perfect.
Yes, perfect, totally perfect. I mean, this is how life moves. It moves through us, and you needed to jump in, and that was just so.
Yeah.
And it allowed the conversation to become much more real. Because I mean, real in the sense of, here is an example. Let's look at this.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Jeannie.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Beautiful to be with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to all for watching. Yeah. And if you feel moved, I do have expenses putting these things on. So if you feel moved to do so, please make a donation at the Living from Love website. And right now, there's nothing specific planned for the future. Sometimes things just flow quite easily. At other times, they don't move so much. I never know, and you'll find out when I find out. I'll let you know. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.